Hey guys, welcome back to CHIRO Coffee Chats. I'm Dr. Pete.
I'm Dr. Carla.
This week we're going to be talking about, wait, what was it?
Youth sports?
Yes.
Youth in sports?
Youth in sports.
Gotcha.
Youth sports, youth injuries in sports.
Yeah.
Because we have one of our YouTube video this week is with a patient whose headaches started when she was younger and doing dance.
Mm-hmm.
Did you do dance growing up?
I was not a dance girl. I was more of the tomboy, soccer, anything.
You were a good soccer player, weren't you?
I was an okay soccer player.
Just okay.
Yeah.
You could brag. No one knows. Maybe somebody watching played against you.
I was incredible.
No,
okay.
So kids sports now, even from the time when you played, their kids sports are crazy.
Oh yeah.
Right now. Like
it seems like it's so much more competitive than when I was.
Yeah.
Like me and myself, I was pretty competitive, but the teams themselves, wow.
It's
atmosphere
you know
themselves,
what? Yeah.
The parents.
Yes. I have three that have been in. Right now, it's all shut down because of where we are. But I mean, I'm trying to remember. At one point, so soccer, I think was 4 or 5 days a week. So like 3-4 practices, 1-2 games. Baseball. My son played baseball for a couple of years. That was 2-3 practices, 2-3 games a week. I mean, he was. I think when he started, he was 9 or 10, and then by like 11, they're pitching like so many. They're doing pitching.
That's incredible.
One played football, and that was 3-4 days a week, tackle football, and then Riley did cheer, and that was
a lot.
That's a lot,
Yeah.
and then so a lot of parents, if you're watching, your kids play rep hockey, rep soccer, cheerleading, whatever. It's a lot, and we love to let our kids experience that, and hopefully it's fun for them. But the stress and strain on a kid's body compared to 20 or 30 years ago, it's just a lot more. And they're doing so much more at younger ages.
Drill wise,
and reps, like thinking about baseball. My kid played baseball for 3 years, rep baseball. Well, he would have swung a bat, I don't know, tens of thousands of times, but always one way, right? So you're torquing your spine and moving your rib cage and so stuff like that is really, significant to think about those micro traumas, not to mention the macro traumas, which if you hit in hockey or you're hit by a pitch or in soccer,
type of contact sport,
your trauma to the body. So I think it's really good and healthy for kids to be in sports, and if they love it to be in rep sports, that's fantastic. But we have to start thinking about what are those sports doing, even if they don't get a full-on injury. What are those micro traumas doing to that child's body, and what can I do to make sure that they don't develop into things like chronic headache sufferer or back pain sufferer, like happened to our patient in the video this week. So what would you say? What would you recommend to our... Well, let's talk about this. So what do you recommend to parents, number one? And then do you want to say anything about... You played soccer. With you playing soccer, do you think you had any injuries that sort of you carried into later life?
Always had you roll your ankle during games or something like that, and you kind of just walk it off. Oh, whatever, I'll tape it up. And definitely now, as I'm aging, I'm not playing sports as often. You feel those very, you think they're just, I rolled my ankle a couple times as a kid. You are so much more likely to re-sprain it as an adult, just because you injure those ligaments. You don't spend the time to heal them, reiterate that proprioception from brain to ankle to heal and re-strengthen the area, just because you're a kid and you're like, they can walk it off, whatever, they'll get over it. But kind of...
Because you're getting up there too. Sorry, I'm
getting really
you're getting
up
there.
Yeah. You just said how young I looked, and now we just compliment.
You're noticing it. You get out of bed, you're like, my ankle from way back when I played soccer.
But I was hiking the other day and I fell and rolled my ankle, and I was just something like that would have never been a thing maybe 5 years ago. I
just hope for you. You're not too old to improve.
Maybe I just wasn't paying attention. Maybe the mind wasn't there, but
all right.
But those things you do carry on later on in life if you don't take the time to heal and re-strengthen the area. So
absolutely.
Being a conscious parent, always watching your kid, seeing how they move, listening to them after games, after practices, to see what they're kind of complaining about, their aches, pains, and if there's anything that you as a parent can help them with. So
Yep.
bringing them to the chiropractor, physiotherapist, making them do their stretches before and after games, just having them eat right. It's just all inclusive there.
Yep. Rest is huge,
Rest.
right? But to the point of like, we're chiropractors, and I think it's really cool if we can observe a child, but hopefully before they get injured.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I have, parents that will bring their kids in when they're young, and we're observing them as they go through and they start gymnastics and they start cheerleading or they start baseball, and we can pick up things and, like a joint problem that could start in childhood, if it's just left, right, could by the time you're a teenager, but by the time you're in your 20s, be something. If it's in the neck, it's causing headaches or migraines.
Right.
If it's in the lower cervical, it could be causing, issues with the shoulder or strength, like all these different things. And if we can like correct those things in their very earliest stages, when a kid is developing them, then we're basically keeping their spine, nerve system, joints healthy. So I think, that's a better future. And for you crazy parents out there, better performance for your child now. So there's some parents that their kid's really good. They want their kid to get a scholarship or make the top AAA hockey team. Chiropractic or other things, physio, massage can be really good tools, because your kid is basically acting like a professional athlete. Yeah. And so they need to be treated that way and cared for, so that their body can keep up those standards of performance.
And so the parent doesn't get stressed out when their child does eventually get injured because of these repetitive motion disorders that they don't deal with early on, and then eventually leads to injury. Then they have to rehab, then they have to
it's a lot tougher. That's a great point. That's a great point. So but now if we just shift it, so if you're not a kid anymore and you think about yourself, if you have long-standing chronic problems, headaches, back pain, think back to your childhood. Did you have any sports where you might have had, not necessarily again big injuries, but those microtraumas or repetitive strains, or did you have some falls or injury, like a car accident when you were a kid, things that if they weren't dealt with properly, that now might be part of the problem you're having today. So that doesn't mean that you can't be helped today. It just means that it's establishing chronicity. Like if it's like we talked about last week, if it's a problem that's been growing for many years, just understand, okay, I'm gonna come in and the chiropractor's gonna crack me and I'm better. It doesn't work that way. No. Or I'm gonna do my exercises for a week and then I get bored. And so sometimes like helping your body go through the healing process, it's slow. It can be boring because again, it's like, I use the analogy, it's very similar to working out. Like you go to the gym and in the first months maybe of going to the gym, like you feel good about it, of course, but it's not like
endorphins are released,
you're good,
you're sweating,
you're doing something moving. Good for yourself, but it's not like you went from a 50-pound bench press to a 300-pound bench press in the first 3 to 6 months. But if you stick with it, the longer you stick with it, the more and more positive changes and beneficial changes you can have. So it's worth sticking with it. Motivation, time, stick with it. But just understand, like if you come see us, that be realistic about time frames to improve. And because sometimes too, this is interesting. Like if somebody has, let's say they've had chronic back pain, right? And they have an X-ray and they have degeneration at L5, S1, right? So maybe some, bone spurs, osteophytes. Now you could get an adjustment, the first adjustment, and right after, that feels better, right? But structurally, that structure is completely the same as it was before the adjustment. You got a little pain relief with the adjustment. But if then if you just did nothing else, nothing really changes, right? So you didn't have a miracle cure, you just felt a bit better. But if you continue with the adjusting, the exercises to put proper movement into those tissues,
to reinforce the adjustment,
reinforce it, proprioception, create changes. I talk about that in my book, like how if whatever we repeatedly do to our tissues will adapt to that. So then as weeks and months of that go by, you're actually getting like an upgraded body. And so I would say too, be aware of sort of the quick fixes. we were talking about that postural device that
Right.
we saw on Instagram, right?
We both got the exact same ad for this, miracle postural device that if you do it for 2 minutes a day for 14 days, it'll change your life and you'll never have back pain again. And it made us kind of laugh.
Interesting. Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, it's probably great.
I mean, it might be a good stretch, and for certain people that need to be stretched in a certain way,
spot, yeah.
that could be useful. So,
and of course, it will be relieving if you do it consecutive days in a row and add it into your daily routine. But again, just like chiropractic, it takes time to build up to that point.
Everything takes time.
And you do have to do things at home like exercises, stretching, strengthening exercises to complement the adjustment, because if you're just going back into your normal day-to-day, everyday, sitting at a desk all day, what we do in the office isn't going to make that much of an impact unless you yourself are also working with us.
Yeah, and it's sometimes you could think of it as like, I know I heard one chiropractor a long time ago explain it like, let's say you have a problem, and then you have all of your day-to-day, like whether it behaviors or postural things, let's say, and you have a momentum, like a bike going downhill fast, which is your problem of whatever. And so an adjustment slows the momentum, an exercise might slow the momentum, but you can't totally stop and turn around and go back up the other way in a day. So you have to, but the amount of if we do a good adjustment, but you're sitting 14 hours a day, it's going to be slow going. So we would want to work on not sitting all day if you can do it. Sometimes we meet people that cannot change their routine, usually because of some difficult job situation. And so we just support them through that until either they can, or sometimes they're forced to change if they, but so and actually that brings up another thing, which is the amount of time to turn a situation around is totally going to relate to the person's lifestyle. So if someone is like, at home and they can relax and go for a walk and meditate and they have minimal stress, in theory, they're probably going to have a quicker turnaround than someone who has a high stress job and they're very busy and
sedentary, don't sleep, don't eat properly, everything in combination. So it does take time, and one, you might feel great after, but again, the time, it's just like you can't go to the gym and for the first time and wake up the next day with these like massive biceps. It takes time to develop this change in your tissues themselves. So it does.
So a couple take home things from this video. Look at yourself. If you're having any problems, look at your past background. That's one of the things we do when we do a health history with people, is ask them about different activities they were through when they were younger that might be contributing. But of course, look at your kids. If you haven't invested the time of having your kids under the observation of a chiropractor or physio or massage or some other healthcare provider that knows about, muscle, joint function, spine, etc., that's something you want to consider. Someday, sports are going to start again for kids. Maybe soon.
Someday.
You don't know. And when they do, you want to make sure your kid can be, because that's really what everybody's about today, is just optimizing wherever you are in life. It doesn't matter if you're 5 years old or 95. And so chiropractic could be a great part of that. So
being aware of yourself, of your children. Again, I had a patient come in and say, hey, like I was watching my kid play soccer the other day. Is he walking funny? And showed me a video of it. He's like, oh, I don't want to be a hover parent or whatever. I was like, no, it's good to be aware of exactly how your child is moving and ask advice and see if there's small changes you can make.
You know what? That's another, we could go on here. And we're getting all these ideas.
So many rants.
So many rants. But here's another one, because think about dental care, right? Like everybody knows you take your kids when they're little to the dentist preventatively, or catching problems in early stages.
Right.
And because you don't want to not, and then they have all these problems, and eventually, they're having problems when they're older, or they're having suffering because of it.
Yeah, of course.
So now, because again, everything is expanding in life, now we turn attention to the spine, the musculoskeletal system. And a lot of, when we see kids, they can by 5, 10, 15 have well-developed problems.
Of course. Especially if they're doing these sports 5 times a week.
Or if they're sitting in front of computers and video games, that's those could be worse than people playing sports. So it's just kind of a no-brainer to invest in that. So because again, thinking about, last point, because we could go on, thinking about kids today. If you're a kid and this is 2021, if you're 10 years old today, what's the lifespan of that kid going to be, do you think, conservatively?
80 years?
I would say more.
90?
Probably 100. A 10-year-old today. Think about it.
Okay.
Like, just the way things are going, the math is on their side. That they're probably gonna, the average lifespan is probably gonna keep going up.
Right.
So I would say 10-year-old has a problem. They're gonna live to be 100. We don't want them suffering from 50 to 100 or 80 to 100 or whatever. So gotta think long term. Gotta invest.
That's exactly it.
Okay.
Health starts as soon as you're born.
It does. Even before. But that's another video. In utero.
Yes.
That's what I was getting at there. Okay. Thanks for watching, guys. If you have any questions, comments, please write them. We would love to answer them. If you have any ideas for future topics, we would be happy to do that. Please also like and subscribe. We got more great content coming your way to help you function better, feel better, and live better. See you on the next one.
See ya.